How's everyone doing today? Matt in Reviews here. Time to talk about the 2013 summer movie season, considering it is pretty much done and over with now. Summer movie season is where a lot of some of the more anticipated movies come out and some of the big blockbuster films come in, the big budget, big action stars, or the big comedy with a lot of large cast that has a lot of recognizable names come out. And this year, compared to a lot of other years, has been really disappointing. And pretty much what I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to go through this summer movies scorecard on Rotten Tomatoes, which has them ranked from worst to best. And I'm just going to give you my opinions on all of those that I've seen so far. Okay. The last on the list is Paranoia. Now, I was actually pretty excited for Paranoia, even though I could tell from the trailer that it was going to be pretty cliche. I mean, I did not hate it as much as everyone else did. I just thought it was really disappointing considering all the star power with Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman. And it was very, very cliche. But I just thought it was just disappointing, no more than that. Next is Grown Ups 2. I haven't seen Grown Ups 2 in its entirety. Whenever I go to check theaters at work, I just end up watching bits and pieces of it, and I laughed, and overall, from what I've seen, because I've seen about 75% of the movie, is that it's a pretty decent movie, and definitely 100 times better than the first film. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that they should make a third one, even though they probably will. I'm just saying I might have a little bit more hope for it if they continue going in the route that they took this one. Next is R.I.P.D. I gave R.I.P.D. an unforgivable rating, and I still stand by that. This is one of the worst movies I've seen in a long, long time. It just rips off so many movies that I just can't find myself enjoying any of it. Next is After Earth. After Earth is decent. It's not great at all, and it's definitely not good, but it is decent. I mean, but they took what they were running with and tried to shrink it. Like, they took all this star power that they had with Will Smith and Jaden Smith and tried to shrink it. They limited their abilities with their performances, and I just felt like that was one of the things that killed the movie. Next is The Hangover Part 3. I respect The Hangover Part 3. I don't like it, but I respect it for moving away from the formula that it had of them blacking out and waking up and just trying to find out what they did. It definitely feels like a whole different movie, and I like that. Does that make it a good movie? Not really, but it's definitely better than the second one, but not as good as the first in my opinion. Next is Planes. Planes is a new Disney Pixar movie that is above the world of Cars, and I'm not the biggest fan of the Cars movies, especially the second one. But it is definitely a lot more family-oriented, like the last few Pixar movies have been. Well, not really even family-oriented, because all Pixar movies are family-oriented, but more aimed towards kids. And that's kind of what's been changing my opinion on these newer Pixar movies, is because they are really aimed more towards kids than a family as a whole. And that's kind of what made Planes miss my mark a little bit. I didn't really feel like this was intended for me. And even if it wasn't intended for me, I just didn't find myself enjoying anything, except some pretty good voice acting by Dane Cook and Brad Garrett and other people. Next is Jobs. I have not seen Jobs, because the theater that I work at did not play Jobs, so I have no opinion on this one. Except that Ashton Kutcher does look a lot like Steve Jobs. Good job there. Next is Kick-Ass 2. This movie got a lot of flack. It really did. A lot of undeserved flack, but I get why people wouldn't like it, because it's showing teenagers cursing and a lot of ultra-violent violence, for lack of better terminology. But I found myself really enjoying this one, with a lot of great performances like Chloe Grace Moretz and Christopher Mintz-Pass and Jim Carrey. They all really made the movie for me. This is definitely an ultra-violent, very stylized, very good, different superhero movie that I definitely recommend that you see. The Lone Ranger. I did not review The Lone Ranger because by the time I would have, it would have been too late. That's why I haven't really been posting a lot of reviews, because by the time that I have seen a lot of these movies, it's too late. This is one of those. I hated this movie. The chemistry between Armie Hammer and Johnny Depp was non-existent. Johnny Depp was just being Johnny Depp, and Armie Hammer was an asshole. He wasn't the Lone Ranger, he was the lone asshole. And the story was convoluted, the scripting was awful, it just felt too big for me as well. I did not enjoy The Lone Ranger. Next we have Peoples. I did not see Peoples. Then we have The Internship. I thought this was a pretty average comedy, I guess. I mean, it wasn't bad. I laughed at a couple points, but that's all I really have to say about it, is that it's just average. Next is Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters. This is another one that I didn't see all the way through, but it did remind me a lot of the first Percy Jackson movie, which I thought was just kind of meh. But I did not read the Percy Jackson book, so I have no basis of comparison with the books and the movies, which I guess is a good thing. But even if you're not comparing those things, it still doesn't make Percy Jackson like a magnum opus of book-to-movie adaptations, either. Next we have The Purge, which had a great concept, but not the best execution in the world. I thought it could have been a whole lot better with what it was trying to do, and it definitely could have been very effective, but it just missed a lot of the points it was trying to make. But it did have an okay message to it if you wanted to read that deep into a movie like that. Next is Only God Forgives. Once again, did not see that. We Are the Millers. We Are the Millers is definitely one of the better comedies I've seen this year. Comedies is one of the types of movies that I'm very critical on, because I'm very hard on comedies, because I've seen so many of them that it's hard to get me to laugh at a comedy movie now. But this one had me laughing pretty hard at some points. I thought it was very goofy, but it was a little bit immature at times, but I found myself even laughing at those points. Oh, and Jennifer Aniston was very, very attractive in this movie. White House Down. Olympus Has Fallen carbon copy with worst performances. There you go. Now You See Me. Something that wanted to be very good, but was not. Was it bad? No. It just was. It did not live up to what the trailer had, which made you expect to be put through this magnificent adventure, but it wasn't that way. The Great Gatsby, one of the most overrated movies of the year, in my opinion. Sure, everyone did fine in this movie. Leonardo DiCaprio was fine. Tobey Maguire was fine. I like them both. But I don't see, the local buzz for this movie where I live was way too high. Everyone was like, oh, this is the Jesus of movies this year. Not really. It kind of gave me a headache. The To-Do List. Once again, another comedy. It was very raunchy and very immature, but it knew that. It was trying to go for that. Just like a lot of comedy movies do. But this one's a little different than other ones. It pulled that off. Man of Steel, one of the most mixed-reviewed superhero movies ever. I actually did not see this until very recently, and I found myself really enjoying this one. I think this is the